Did you know that the light at different windows in your house may not actually be bright indirect light? I know, it's super confusing. Let me help you. In today's video, we're going to be breaking down light in just a very simple and easy to understand way so that you understand what kind of light you have in your space, and then you can kind of make a better judgment call of where your plant would be happiest. I'm Rosetta with Rosetta Grows, and I have created this series, How to Keep Your Plants Alive, for those of you specifically who feel like you have maybe a black thumb. New episodes come out on Friday, so go ahead, hit subscribe now and hit the bell so that you'll be notified and won't miss a thing. I heard that if you subscribe, that your plants will live forever. I started out not knowing anything about lighting and bright indirect light and anything of what that meant. And I have created some really awful plants. I have scorched them, I have burned them, I have killed them. I have created weird leggy monsters out of succulents. I've done all kinds of crazy stuff just because I wasn't clear on what light I had and what my plant needed. But I have also learned a whole lot, and I want to share that information with you. Have lost your confidence. All right, so we're starting here and it's super basic, and I bet you already knew this one. Plants grow outside. I know. See how smart you are? You already knew this one. Plants grow outside, and the point is there is no way inside that you are going to get the quantity and the quality of light that a plant would get outside, even in the shade. And that means you run the risk of overwatering. Wait, you say? This is a lighting video. Why are we talking about watering? Hang in with me for just a second. Plants need three basic things. They need air, they need light, they need water, and they need it in a very good balance. If they don't have enough light, the water that you just thoroughly watered your plant, good for you, is now just going to sit in the roots. It's not going to photosynthesize if it's not getting enough light. And when it photosynthesizes, if you remember from my watering video, that the water is going to be uptaken by the roots to go out to the rest of the plants to respirate and do its whole cycle of living. So if it's not pulling that water up out of the soil, obviously those roots are going to get wet and soggy. In order to use the water that you just watered your plant, it needs the adequate amount of light. So do you think that you're giving your plants the adequate amount of light? Have you even thought of that before? Let me know in the comments below what specifically you're having in terms of light issues. I would love to answer in the comments below or even create separate videos to address problems as they come up for you. This plant keeps getting me. The very first thing that you're going to need to know, and you're going to hear me beat the same drum again and again because it is important, please know your plant. You got to know your plant and know what it needs. Every plant has very specific, scientifically, very specific amounts of light, photons it needs to absorb in order for it to adequately photosynthesize. You don't need to know all of that information. You just need to know about how much it needs. Bright, medium, low. Okay, so now what? It looks pretty bright in here, right? We're just going to set it over there by the window. It's going to be fine, right? Well, the short answer is maybe. The light in your home is going to vary on a bunch of different factors. Learn these simple guidelines and you're going to have a much better idea of where to put that new plant. Where your windows are facing and how many you have in a room is really going to indicate what kind of plants that you can keep alive. And probably the most important is really trying to figure out what direction do these windows face. So grab out your handy dandy smartphone and pull up the compass app. Let's start with northern facing windows. Here in the northern hemisphere, these are the windows that are going to get way less direct light, maybe none, and so they're going to be mostly shaded. In general, low light plants can survive right up next to the window. Not necessarily thrive, so you need to consider that. They might survive, it might just be kind of a slow, steady decline, but you could maybe recharge them by rotating them into a more well-lit room. Eastern windows are going to be those ones where the sun comes up. For those of you who refuse to get out your compass. So the sun is going to come up and kind of hit those windows early in the morning to kind of about midday. The sun is going to be not as intense, but it is going to be bright. Western light obviously is the opposite of Eastern. It's where the sun goes down. So that sun at the end of the day is going to like come in and just blast the plants, especially in the hotter months. So you need to kind of be careful about what you put too close to the window, but this window would support medium to high light plants. Southern windows are like the coveted bright indirect light windows. It's the brightest windows because our southern windows, as we here in the northern hemisphere are situated, are the windows that are going to get the most sun for the most part of the day. So it's just like in terms of quantity, it has the highest amount of light coming through. Obviously, our homes aren't always situated on a perfect north, south, east, west grid. So the northern windows that I have are actually situated northeastern. So they have a little bit more morning sun than just a north window would. They get a little bit peak of some light, which is why my Calatheas amaranthus do so well. The next thing to consider is how many windows you have in a room that you're putting plants in. Maybe you have windows on 2 sides of the room or even 3, bless you, do you live in a greenhouse? If you have more windows in the room, it's going to let in, again, more quantity of light, and it might support plants that have a brighter light need than what you would normally consider them having. So if you have, let's say, 3 northern windows, it's all windows, you might be able to support a plant that even has maybe a medium light tolerance because there's just so much more light. With all this information, you also have to take in consideration what is outside of those windows that might be blocking the light from coming in. For example, I have a southern window in the dining room, awesome southern window, but it acts more like a medium light window because I have a shade tree that basically blocks the light until the very end part of the day. So I can have my medium plants right up against that window and they do just fine because they're not actually getting direct sun. I also have some beautiful neighbors who have a white house. The light bounces off this blank wall next to us and bounces into my northern windows. And I don't know exactly in the science of the quality of light as it reflects off other surfaces, and I am going to get to the bottom of that, but I think it helps. And so, consider that. Maybe you have light reflecting off a building next door, or maybe you're in a high rise and it is completely blocking your western window. You need to consider how much light is actually coming through those windows as well. So now you know your window and your direction situation, how much light is coming in. Now you need to consider where you're going to put that plant. Are you going to put it right against the window? That's great, because that is where the light is brightest. The further you move away from the window, more dim that light is going to be. It's not as bright and it degrades very quickly. In fact, it's like it degrades by inches. So if you're thinking of putting a plant on a table that's like 6 feet away from the window in the middle of the room, you have to consider that you might not have a bright light situation 6 feet away from a southern window. You might have a more of a medium light situation, or maybe even a low light situation if it's a small window that lights that room. I have plants sitting here, and honestly, they're like 12 feet away from the nearest window, maybe more. But the reason why these plants are successful here is that there's a couple things going on. I have south and western windows, and I have a ton of them. I have an entire 2 walls of windows that obviously are letting in very bright light throughout the day, and particularly in the afternoon. So in terms of quantity of light, I'm getting a lot of light in here. So these walls do fine in supporting medium to low light tolerant plants. A very quick way to measure the light in your room, just as like a rough guideline, is to do what they call a shadow test. So wherever you're hoping to put your plant, you put up your hands and determine what that shadow looks like. If it's super sharp and super clear, you probably have highlight situation going on. If it's kind of like this, it's like there's a shadow, but it's not very clear, that's probably more towards medium to low. And if there's no shadow whatsoever, you're looking at a low to like no light situation. There are definitely more specific ways to measure light, and I don't want to get into that today because I do want to keep this basic, but let me know below if you're interested. Also, you just want to consider roughly the season. It's not going to dramatically change where you can put your plants, but you just need to understand that it might change the placement of your plant. This summer, you're going to get much more light throughout the day, and it could be a little bit more intense, so you might need to pull those plants away or allow them to come forward as it is. I have some more care tips on seasonal changes in my winter care tips video. So in summary, northern windows, barring anything blocking the light, are going to be your low light tolerant rooms. Eastern and western rooms are going to be the medium to the medium high, and the southern locations are going to be that nice bright light. Again, considering how much light blocking things you have out there. So think about your windows and then place your plants accordingly based on what they need. Obviously keeping in mind how far from the light source you are placing them. I hope that helped. Maybe you're new to plants, or maybe you aren't, but you're still throwing those tags away. Stop, get to know your plants. Head over to Instagram, where I try to do stories throughout the week giving you tips and ideas about what you can do with your plants and just changes I'm making around here, which I think we can all learn from. So I save those stories usually in my highlights, so you can go take a look and see if you've missed anything over there. So did you learn something today? Did you get what you were looking for? I really hope so. But if you didn't and you want to know more, or you feel like I might have left something out, please just comment below, and I would love to help you out specifically in the comments if I can. And if I get so many questions about something, I'll just make another video about those questions in particular. My heart is really to help people out and help people keep their plants alive. So let me help you. Let me know what you need help with. Give me a subscribe by clicking my face over here, and I'm lining up the other videos in the series here in case you missed them. I release new ones on Friday, so be sure to stick around, subscribe, and get notified. The next one is coming out on Friday, and it is going over fertilization, which I get questions about all the time. So I'm super excited to jump into that. I'll see you guys then.